Hey guys, welcome to the Magfed Ranch Paintball channel, and today I'm going to be shooting another Magfed Mondays. But before I get into it guys, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and of course turn on your notification bell so that way you're reminded when I post new content, okay? And of course, lastly, at the end of the video, please share and comment. Okay guys, today's topic for Magfed Mondays is potentially a controversial one. But I just feel like we need to bring it, out there and air it out in our Magfed community. And it kind of came about, the idea for today's video is because of all the recent kind of friendly debate that I've been having on the social media platforms with other Magfed players, other people in the community, Facebook, on my YouTube videos, right? And that is, we have a lot of subjective, anecdotal evidence out there in terms of how our markers, our equipment, and all the associated things that go with a Magfed loadout and setup, how it works, how it performs, how reliable it is. And so I'm calling out to all of us, myself included. Like I said, guys, you guys hold me accountable out there if my videos, have flaws in them, or maybe my data points that I present to you, my test results that I show to you guys, if there's a flaw in system. For example, I know I shot a recent TIPX accuracy video, and I remember one of the viewers commented that because of the CO2 inconsistencies, they felt like, that test data was not obviously valid. And hey guys, that's a valid criticism. So, I ended up getting a remote line fitting setup for my TIPX. So I'm hoping to shoot some videos for you guys in the future of the accuracy of that TIPX. So that way I can give you guys that consistent and, valid results that we should. And so that's what I'm talking about today. Like I said, let's do our best. Let's try our best as a community moving forward to give honest, objective data, right? Not this kind of own personal experience kind of data that can be conflicting from one player to another player. For example, I'll give you guys my experience, okay? Because this is going to be very subjective and anecdotal. And so you can see how. Anyways, let me tell you my experience, and then I'll get to the point. So back in the day when I was playing all the time, guys, this is, probably a decade ago when I was playing a lot. Okay, I was traveling all everywhere just to find Magfed events. I know there's some of you guys out there and gals out there that do that as well, but this was, obviously over a decade ago, around a decade. And, I was always that person that wanted to have the most reliable, Magfed, realistic platform, highest performing. I'm all about that, guys. I'm one of those person that when I'm in, I'm all in. And so I started out with, of course, I saw Rap 4. They were MCS was known as Rap 4 back then. And I saw their T68 marker. And then also I saw the Rap 4 43 caliber markers. And guys, I bought the 43 caliber and the T68. And I'll tell you guys right now, the 43 caliber was trash. Okay, I had both the Rap 4 version and the Mets version, the ones that shot with the little small casings. And they were hugely unreliable. They used CO2. That was probably the reason as well too. Once again, CO2, not a really good propellant to be using. And so I had terrible luck with the 43 caliber stuff. I wanted the most realistic looking platform. That's the reason why I chose it, right? Because it was like a 1-to-1. This was before the T15 platforms were available. First Strike was still known as Tiberius, and they had like the T8, those type of markers. And so I just switched up from that marker and I went and got a T68. And the T68 was very similar to like a Milsig A5 type of platform. It used the round ball, round collar magazines. And we were still using CO2 at this time, guys. We still weren't using compressed air yet. And I'm sure, there was issues because of using it. But in the T68's credit, it worked well with round ball. It had the occasional jams with round ball if you used the wrong paint, right? Because back then we didn't really know that Vulcan was a go-to paint, or other paints out there designed specifically for Magfed were the go-to paints. And so you would get, obviously dimpled, oval shape, not perfectly round, not the correct, diameter. You'd leave the magazines under spring tension, and of course with round ball, right? So all these things were like new concepts that we were still trying to figure out back in the day, versus now it's kind of like a general rule of thumb. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that, we didn't do our testing back then to really figure out as well as we could to figure out what worked and what didn't. And the people that did test it, we didn't really let everyone in the community know, right? Social media really wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't one of those things that you were using as a platform to kind of relay this information out. No one was posting videos as much as they do nowadays. And so this information wasn't getting things. And so once again, you were getting this anecdotal, subjective, personal experience. Oh, this works and this doesn't work, right? And so kept going with the platforms, right? And the T68, like I said, was a good round ball platform, and it worked okay. But when I saw First Strike for the first time, right, the shape projectiles for the first time, I knew this was the future of Magfed. This was it. If we wanted Magfed to get to its final form, right, Super Saiyan, whatever form, right, FSR was the way to go. So even back then, a couple years in, and FSR, First Strike, Tiberius, they were using those rounds. And people were just starting to kind of get, hey, we need to start using this round for that increased performance, right? You had the Diadem came out. Of course, you had the SAR 12 came out. That was a breakthrough. And then, of course, you had like the magazine kits, right? The TGR magazines. You had the D-mags that finally were released. And guys, to make a long story short, I tried it all, guys. I got a 468 as well too. You guys can kind of see it. It's still in the corner over there. That 468, when I got it, and even the T68, I tried all the different mag wells to use the different magazines that were FSR capable. And I'm telling you guys, none of that stuff worked. And even back then, this is to my point, even back then, you were hearing stories, oh, this works great, and this works great. And I'm telling you guys, I don't think, not to call anybody out, but I don't think it worked as well as they said it worked. Let's just say that, okay? And so if it did, I would have seen it. On average, the only platforms that worked well at the events that I and my team attended were the SAR and the Diadems, okay? But most people, didn't have the $1,500, $1,600, whatever price they were going for back in the day, to purchase those markers. And so once again, the data set, the pool of data on how well these things performed were still fairly small. And so keep on going on, the 468, guys, I tried everything on it. I tried, like I said, the different mag wells, the different magazines, D-Mag, Helix, TGR, right? I didn't try the first generation First Strike because at that time, guys, I was so invested in the 468 to try to get it to work, and it just didn't work. And then, of course, you know, when I was going to the events, I met Doug. I don't know if a lot of you old school guys remember Doug from Milsig and Nelson from Milsig, right? And so they caught me on to that new Paradigm Pro. You know, the Milsig was releasing that. And so my team was looking to a new marker. I've said this in other videos, but I was the armorer. I was kind of the guy that was tinkering with all our markers, trying to make sure that they're reliable, making sure that they were performing better. I was the one mounting optics on them. I mean, even back then we were mounting red dots on and zeroing in with round ball all the way back then. You know, we were running a saw gunner. I had an A5 with a box mag that I was, you know, running as a saw gunner, while my other team were kind of the assaulters. And then when we switched, and of course, the reason why we wanted to have first strike capability is because we wanted some DMMs and some snipers on the team, right? You know, one guy lays suppressive fire, the team moves and shoot, and then the other, you know, the other people with the accurate markers can place, you know, elimination hits, right, on the opposition while they're pinned down by the saw gunner, right? So that was our strategy. And like I said, I could not get the 468 guys. And of course, you know, the T68 with the magwells, the TGRs, I couldn't get them to work with first strike rounds. And so we switched to the Milsig Paradigm Pros. And guys, honestly, for the first time, our team was first strike capable, okay? And guys, I know this is a long story, but I'm getting to the point, right? So when we finally were first strike capable with the Paradigm Pro, and we tested it, you know, we made sure that the markers were reliable. I was testing it, you know, at my place, at my shop. And yeah, we got it to work reliably well. But I'll be honest with you guys, even the Paradigm Pro, the Milsig Paradigm Pro, it had its magazine issues even back then. You know, some of the videos I shot with the magazine concerns, I presented to you guys because of that experience. Okay? So yes, we got it to work the most of the time, but it wasn't what I would call, if Magfed markers were like real firearms and you had to trust your life on it, with FSR, the old school Milsig Paradigm Pro was not a combat capable marker, right? I wouldn't trust my life on it. Did it work most of the time? 60%, 70%. Like I said, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like anecdotal. Yes, it worked like that. But, you know, you would get that occasional jam. You would get that occasional flip because of the magazine, because of the old school Milsig chamber. They didn't really have the chamber figured out like the new Valken M17 chamber is, and magazine. And so you had issues. And so, like I said, guys, you know, if I had to give people my experience, and I was guilty of this too, guys, back in the day, you know, I was like, you know, oh, hey, it worked most of the time. This is good enough. You know, so I would tell people, oh yeah, you know, use the Milsig Paradigm Pro. It's good enough. And same thing with like when I had the 468. Real quick side note, you know, the 468, it worked well in testing with first strike rounds. Shoot, I still have an old video of, you know, my team testing the 468 at my place. You know, I think it's like ODSC Washington or something like that. But anyways, there's an old video of us testing the marker out to like 80 yards, 90 yards, and you can see that the marker is reliable during that whole filming. But you can also see how inconsistent it was with the feet per second. You can see because of that, how the groupings were all off. You know, we didn't use, I think we had rifle barrels at that time, so at least we were using rifle barrels, so you can see the up and down pretty accurate because of the rifle barrels, but because of the feet per second fluctuations, you can see how, you know, the elevation groupings were so off. But in actual gameplay, guys, the 468 sucks. And like I said, this is not a diss on MCS. I'm not making this video to diss on particular brands or particular products. the point of this was that we need to have, valid data, valid testing, and let's present it to each other in that way, right? Come up with how our military, how even you see guys, I've seen shooting videos out there, right, where they'll shoot rounds, 100-yard grouping rounds, and see what your groups are, at those distances. For us, obviously, paintball, 100 yards is not a good distance, right? The reason why real firearms use 100-yard zeros because that is the standard at which you can rate, a 1-inch MOA, right? 1 MOA, 2 MOA, 3 MOA, and most rifles, you can get that MOA specification at that 100-yard distance. With our markers, because, they're not obviously shooting out that far, that distance is honestly, it's going to be closer to our 20-yard zero, like I was telling you guys, On a 20-yard zero, our MOA on an accurized, rifled, optic-equipped, steady platform FSR marker, you should expect 2-inch to 3-inch groupings with match grade FSR ammo. Okay? Sometimes you can get around, 1.5 to 2-inch groupings, depending on the match grade ammo and of course the marker, right? But like I said, once again, it's all about consistency and repeatability and probability, right? On average, you should be able to get 2 to 3-inch groups with an accurized FSR marker at that 20-yard distance. And so you'll notice that it'll continue getting, obviously, that grouping will expand at the further distances, just like a normal rifle, right? 1 MOA rifle at 100 yards, you should expect a 2 MOA, right? 2-inch grouping at 200 yards, right? A 3, it's all still 1 MOA, but my point is the distance, right? Instead of a 1-inch grouping at 100 yards, you're gonna get a 2-inch grouping at 200 yards, and then a 3-inch grouping at 300 yards, and so forth. So that 1 MOA repeatability is going to be consistent at the different distances. And you'll start seeing that with the Magfed markers as well with the first strike rounds. And with the longer barrels, you will see tighter groupings as well, okay? So, like I said, this anecdotal evidence of mine, it would be, wrong of me to say that just that personal experience alone is why I would condemn some of the products. Now, that's so it's not 100% anecdotal because I wish I had filmed it for you guys, right? But obviously I tested thousands of rounds through these markers to try to get them to work with first strikes. Spent a lot of money and a lot of time, and it didn't work. But my point is, we need to showcase it, video it if we can, or have data, or record it on data, and present it to ourselves, our community, and make sure that we're giving reliable, like I said, repeatable data out there. So that way we're not having these conflicting things. Because like I said, I've been hearing so many conflicting evidence, in the last few weeks of just, our different posts. And I get it, guys, I get why as a community it's hard for us to do it. Magfed is expensive, right? The markers aren't cheap. FSR isn't cheap. The time, to go play it isn't cheap, right? Like, we all have our lives, we all have work, we all have our families. And it takes a lot of money. Shoot, I told you guys, I've shot over 10,000 rounds of FSR. Think about how much money that is, right? Look at how many markers I have back here. It's an addiction, but it costs a lot of money to do all this, but I love doing it. But the point is, let's make sure that we provide objective data to each other. And let's have, like I said, an open discussion about that. Let's not be, let's not take any of it personal. I'm not saying anybody has, Let's not take it personal. Let's not, like I said, let's not try to, ad hominem attack anybody. Let's just present the data as is and let's use it, right? So one person has a data set point for this setup and another person has a data point for this setup. Let's share it if you can. And let's also push, like I said, for the manufacturers, anybody who has the capability to do that, to showcase us and give us that info. Because let's be honest, I mean, if there was, when manufacturers compete, we all win, guys, right? If manufacturers are out there testing the reliability, the accuracy, the performance of their products, and they could really show that one outperforms another, right? Like who here, raise my hand, right? Who here wouldn't want to see like a shootout between the three major, Magfed platforms, right? T15, M17, EMF, right? Maybe throw in the SAR, the TGR, do like a 1,000 round shootout, right? See how many, jams, just like our military rifle testing, right? Where like, how many jams, how many errors, how many flips did you get in that 1,000 rounds? Shoot, put freaking 5,000 rounds through each marker and see how accurate each one performed, how many jams and how many stoppages it had. Did the magazines fail? Did the marker thing? What failed in the marker? What this failed? What that failed, right? And once and for all, see which one's the better performing, more reliable marker. But anyways, guys, that's my call to arms today. That's what, I'm shouting out. I'm calling out to everyone in the community, including the manufacturers, anybody who has capability to do this, to provide and give us that information that I think would benefit our sport and honestly push our sport forward even more. But hey guys, thank you for joining for the video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Please subscribe, right? Please do me a huge solid, share, comment. I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.